Hey there, welcome to the Breakthrough Creative. I am John McDavitt, and this is the place where we talk about the business of art and the art of business. Today is a very special day. It is Valentine's Day. I have a little heart-shaped chocolate candy that I'd like to share with you, but since you're not here, I'm going to eat it. And we'll see how I can sound through this while I'm chewing on it. And if you're watching, how messed up my teeth, how more messed up my teeth may get. Hey, it's been a year. The Breakthrough Creative has been on the air for a year. I explained a couple of episodes ago that I don't have 52 episodes for the year because I had early on a little break as I was getting into video editing these episodes to release them both as podcasts and as video shows. And, it started off as a podcast, and one of my guests, Kim Woody, suggested, hey, why don't you do it as a video show as well? And it's been fantastic. I'm really glad that I took that suggestion from her. Thank you, Kim. And I'm just so grateful to have been able to share just my journey with you guys, as well as bring guests on who have been willing to share their journeys with you as well. And I'm looking forward to more of that in this coming new year for the show. And so today, I want to talk a little bit about how to figure out how you can get clients with your skills. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of, hey, this is how you market or this is how you cold call or anything like that today. But, I want to bring you back to a time when I was just getting started out and I knew I could draw. I was about 18 or so. I knew I could draw, and I knew that I wanted to make a living as an artist, and that was kind of it. Those were like the two things. I mean, I could sculpt a bit, and I was learning about mold making, but I needed to make some money. And so what I ended up doing is I was looking through the newspapers back then. There'd be local newspapers because there was no internet. It'd be local newspapers. There would be city newspapers. And you would look through the ads, and there might be the want ads, help wanted ads, and there might be here and there something that was like, okay, maybe that would fit, but it never really added up to a whole lot for me. So I thought, okay, I've got to figure out another way. So I think the first lesson today is if it's not working out for you, you've got to find another way. And so you need to be creative. And I don't know what the answer is for you because I'm not you and I don't know what your skills are. But I think that there is a process, a common process that we can walk through that will help to get us closer to that destination of making a living as an artist, or might be the absolute answer. You don't know. But one thing for sure, if you don't do anything, nothing will change, right? So we want to change for the better. We want to be productive. We want to be making a living as artists. So, I picked up the airbrush early on and then put it away. So it was 8th grade, I think I picked an airbrush up and I did something on a mural at a school I was at, and I couldn't figure out how to unclog it. I couldn't clean it. And it went into a drawer for the next 4 years. And then when I needed to make a living from my art, airbrushing t-shirts was becoming big. It was 1989, and it had made its way up from Florida and from some of the southern states down that way, where airbrushing was kind of a way of tourist life. And I knew that I had to figure it out. So I pulled this airbrush out, and I'm not a technical guy. I wasn't at the time anyway. And I cleaned it out and I got it running, and got good at the skill, and I would say I got good, like okay to good at the skill of airbrushing. And then when I had that skill to a level that I thought I was okay to good, and I probably thought I was better than I was because I was younger, and you want to believe, right? Or at least that's how I'm built. I'm an optimist, so I wanted to believe that I was maybe further along than I was. So I took this airbrush and started to airbrush some t-shirts with it, and I sold some t-shirts to the neighbor, and they were thrilled with them, and I was thrilled to make, I don't know, I think I sold them for $5 each or something, and the shirts were probably $1.25 a piece, and I still made a little bit of a profit on them, very little, but I made this sale, and then I was able to bring my skills to a local airbrush t-shirt shop that somebody had opened up nearby. And I mean, you think about it, how random that could be. Like there were 3 places maybe I knew of in the Chicago area. I'm not saying there weren't more around, but I didn't know of them, and I couldn't go online because there was no internet to go online to and check it out. But there were a couple of places that was doing this, and there was one in particular. I started to hang out, just started to hang out. And I watched this guy who was a master and another guy who was a really good airbrushing. And then I wasn't a nuisance, like I was a fan. And then they invited me in and we became friendly. And then they asked me to try some stuff on shirts. And what I didn't know at the time is one of them wanted to get back. Actually, they both wanted to get back to South Carolina, where they were from. And they were trying to set me up so that, in a good way, to set me up so that I might be the guy who could stay here and run the shop up here, and they would go home. So you never know what's brewing, right? I didn't know any of that part of the story, but I knew that I wanted what they had. I wanted to be able to do what they had, and they had a problem to be solved. And that problem to be solved is they needed somebody up here who was airbrushing, who was good enough and competent and trustworthy, who they could leave in charge, or their big boss, the owner, could feel confident and comfortable enough with to leave in charge up here. And in their mind, I was potentially the solution to their problem. So that is really the crux of this episode, is our ability to earn off of our creative skill set is always linked to solving the problem of a potential client. We are in the business of problem solving, okay? How is an airbrush t-shirt problem solving? Well, somebody comes in and they decide that they need a shirt because they've seen it being created. They want one. So that's a solution to their desire. So problem is the word that I'm using there. Problem, it's a broad term. It's an umbrella term. So problem/need could work well together. But for the sake of simplicity, I'm going to call it problem. Or maybe somebody has a gift that they need to buy, a birthday gift, and they don't know what to get, and they come walking by this shop and they go, oh, that's perfect. I can get something custom made and it's $30 or whatever. Oh, that's perfect. So it's a solution to their problem. So I am in the business of solving people's problems with my creative skills. Now, I wasn't going to go on airbrushing t-shirts forever. Like, that wasn't going to be the sole thing that I did. And if it was the only thing I ever wanted to do, you can make a good living doing that. Like, I could have focused in on that. But I had this background in special effects makeup, and I wanted to branch out and diversify a bit. And I fell in with these toy designers. And so I had these skills that related back over into that world. And that helped me to develop more and more skills, which the more skills you develop, the more problems you are going to be able to solve for potential clients. So I would make lists of what my skills were. I would make lists of all these things. I have a list right here. And, you know, some of these skills that I had were like way lower on the ability scale or mastering of those skills. So, but I would write them all down. Like I was really good with pencil. I could draw just about anything, and I could shade really well. I was good with a pencil, pen and ink. I could have been really good at, but it didn't flow for me as well as the pencil. Like I could fly with a pencil, I could fly even with an airbrush, and I could draw portraits as well. So when I think of the creative skills in this list that I'm creating for myself, it's starting to paint a picture of the actual technical skills that I have, and then some of the creative specialties that I have. So when I talk about airbrushing, I was good with the tool and I got better and better and better, but I can airbrush realistically. So I can airbrush fur, and I can airbrush eyes, and I can airbrush flesh, and I can get a fairly realistic to very realistic look with the work I do. But I can also cartoon. So, on my list, I'd write airbrushing, and then everything else might relate back to it. So if I'm a cartoonist and I can do caricatures, murals, and then I've got mold making on that list, sculpting, creature design, toy design, package design. And am I a great mold maker? No. Do I understand the process and the concept? Yes. How can that benefit a client? Well, if I need to make a simple mold, I might be your guy. But if I'm helping you to design a product that's going to go into production that needs to be moldable by the process of injection molding, then I know how to create the figure or whatever it is that you want to mold so that it satisfies that need of being injection molded, because you got to know stuff about undercuts, you got to know drafting, and by that I mean the pitch, the angle of the inside walls. You've got to have this thing. If it's a two-piece mold, you can't have any underbites on it. Where like if you're casting an apple and you're not at the equator of the apple, you're too far over, you won't be able to get this thing out. And, there's tens of thousands of dollars involved in these mold making processes. And if you don't get that right, you could have a lot of trouble as far as being the person doling out the money for that. So, taking those things into consideration, like how you use your creative knowledge or how you use your skills that relate to your creative business. And, as an illustrator, a guy who could draw with pencil, who could render in pen and ink, who could render with an airbrush. I could also work with marker. Like I didn't put watercolor down because I'm not a watercolorist. That's a whole different world. But then, I moved into digital. And so I started to work in Adobe Illustrator and Adobe Photoshop, and I became very skilled at those. And then recently Procreate came along, which is an iOS app. And I use that on the iPad, and that's my go-to, because it's like there was a program called Painter that wasn't as intuitive for me. I think that was by Corel. Anyway, it wasn't as intuitive for me, and I figured out how to paint in Photoshop. But it's almost like Photoshop, speaking of Valentine's, Photoshop got together and married Painter, and then they had Procreate as a child. And Procreate is just this wonderful, intuitive tool, I think, for an artist, where I can draw and paint and use charcoals and all this stuff digitally. And it's just miraculous. So, my pursuit of broadening my creative skill set, it moved into digital. And that made me a little bit more scalable. And by that, I mean, I could work more quickly. I could work with clients anywhere in the world. Internet came along, right? And it just made me, it made me less regional. and it made me a little bit more maybe desirable by some of the clients that I worked with or was pursuing, because I could take care of a lot of issues in one stop. I could design conceptually. I can render packaging. I can render images for sales meetings and for sales actually to bring these images either on boards that I would print and create for them, or just digital images that they would put into a PowerPoint presentation, or create mock-ups for them if they say have a display that is going to hold a bunch of packages of gum, say a 24 count display tray that needs to have the graphics on the front, the sides, the back. It's got to have the legal information. I learned that stuff so I can do that for clients. And so I can write all this stuff down on a list, right? And these are all the skills I have. And then I can maybe pick a couple of them that I'm like really comfortable with, like I'm really, really feeling good about. And let's say I take one and I take airbrushing. And I know what I can do with that, right? And so I bring it over to another sheet. And now I'm going to figure out what kind of problems can I solve for clients with the airbrush. And so I make this list of, t-shirts and clothing. Again, when I talk about problem, I'm also talking about maybe a need that arises for somebody. So t-shirts and clothing, I think of gifts. It's a giftable thing. It's a team shirts maybe, in that kind of vein that I can create with an airbrush. Illustrations I can do. I do so much digitally now, I don't know that I would really pursue that traditionally in the real world to airbrush something for a client. But if they really wanted it and everything was right, I might say, yeah, I'll do it. I just don't know how much a client would need that. But I'll put that on my list anyway, because it is a problem that can be solved. So a word about all of this I'm talking about right now is brainstorming. And when you're brainstorming, it's a really good idea not to limit yourself, because you just want to throw everything out there. You want to put every idea out there, the good ideas, the fantastic ideas, the bad ideas, the lame ideas, the goofy ideas, every idea, you throw it out there, and then you can kind of rake through it later and take out the bad stuff and the stuff that doesn't work and the stuff that is silly and the whatever, and keep the best of your ideas. So if you're ever in a brainstorm session with a team, you'll know that they're doing it well if they don't start making fun of somebody's ideas. Because as soon as somebody starts making fun of somebody else's ideas, or the manager does, the person who's leading the meeting, it's just not a safe place. It's that brainstorm session is just going to go to downhill, because who's going to want to share anything innovative? They might be made fun of. I mean, maybe some people will still do it, but brainstorming is meant to be a free expression of idea, and you throw them all out there. So this is what you're doing for yourself, right? And I'm running down this list of things that I may be able to do with the airbrush. So, t-shirts and clothing, illustration, murals. The reason I like to use murals in with the airbrush is, man, I can cover a lot of area of wall with an airbrush, and it just looks so nice and smooth, and the gradients are smooth, and it can be a really slick look in the right hands. I wrote down automotive painting, murals and graphics on vehicles, which I'm a little bit less interested in because of the noxious paints, right? The chemicals you'd have to use. Sign painting. I don't know how many people paint signs anymore. So much of it is printed, but there's possibilities there, right? Airbrushing for body painting and effects makeup. So maybe this would be used in film or in commercials or in events. Maybe there's an event that is being thrown by a company and they want to have cool body painting there. Again, it could be used commercial and TV makeups, like straight makeup. If you're doing beauty makeup or you're just doing straight makeup, saying on a news anchor, they might do their own now. I actually think that may be the case. I'm not sure. In some cases, perhaps. Airbrushing of caricatures. So again, this could be t-shirts. It could be, we've seen them at theme parks doing this. We've seen them in tourist areas doing this. And then again, maybe special events. I have furniture restoration on my list as well, because maybe there's going to be decorative elements that you would cut a really nice stencil for, and you would airbrush onto this piece of furniture or a series of pieces of furniture that all go together, and maybe it turns into a long-term job. I don't know. Just brainstorming, like I said, right? And throwing everything down. And then maybe there's decorative painting in homes. Maybe it's a mural in somebody's newborn baby's room, or maybe somebody, kind of like the decorative furniture thing, you're going to do stencils that are going to have a decorative element that go into someone's living room or kitchen or powder room. You just don't know. So I put all this stuff together, and then out of that list, I will take, again, just like I took out of the first list, hey, I'm really good at airbrushing. I know it well. I feel comfortable with it. I can make money with it. Then I brought that into the next list, right? What problems can I solve with airbrushing? I'm going to take out of that list things that I'm really comfortable with. So again, murals, I'm really comfortable with. Residential, public, commercial murals. I think that the furniture, decorative elements for furniture fits into that. And then the decorative painting in the homes obviously fits into that. So I can take those 3 elements now, and I can look at those and say, hey, I could offer these services to clients who need it. Like, what clients' problems can I solve with mural painting, with public murals, commercial murals, residential private murals, and maybe some of that involves painting on furniture, or you're painting in bedrooms, kids' rooms, powder room, right? All of that, it kind of goes together. So I think, how can I get to the end client? How can I do this? Well, I remembered years ago, I contacted interior decorators, and they were the ones who got me in touch with my clients, and I worked out a deal with them. I think they got 10% of whatever it was that I painted. So let's say it was a $2,000 job. I would give them $200, and I would have the gross of $1,800, and my paint and everything would come out of that. But I look and I go, interior decorators are definitely on that list. I would say architects, designers, builders are on that list. New parents, how do I get in touch with new parents? Maybe there are baby furniture specialty stores around, or other specialty stores, or maybe there's a way to do it on Facebook. I don't know. I'm just, going, how would I get in touch with them? I might be jumping the gun a little bit, but I do think about that while I'm making these lists. Maybe there's some furniture makers or restorers locally. My niece does that. My niece gets furniture and she makes it over, and she does such a beautiful job with it. Shout out to you, Elaine. You'll probably see her in a future episode. People remodeling their home. Okay. So there are these, a variety of problems that these people, organizations, companies have, that I could solve with airbrushing. And in particular, murals and furniture restoration and decorative painting. So now I have kind of a fleshed out, laser focused thought, as chaotic as maybe the last 20 minutes or so have been, right? Because brainstorming can be chaotic. Well, then you boil it down. And what do we have? We have creative skill sets, and I picked airbrushing out of that. And then I decided that the problems that I want to go after solving with my airbrushing are murals, decorative painting in homes, and furniture restoration. And then who are the clients who have that problem or that need? Who can I help with my airbrushing of murals and decorative furniture and decorative painting in homes? Well, immediately, like the ones that jump to the top of the list for me are interior decorators and public buildings, libraries, schools. And so now my next step is going to be figuring out how to market to them, figuring out how to get the right people, get my work in front of the right people, and then begin to have opportunities where I can quote and sell and close deals. So some of the hardest work that we do is figuring out what is our product. And I think it may be is easier to determine what we're good at, but it can be difficult to figure out how to apply it to the needs of a client, and then to create value around that, right? So that the client sees the value. And selling and marketing, that's another step, right? But for me, I think what we need to think about with our art and what we want to sell is what problems can we solve? How are we going to be a problem solver for our clients? Okay. So if you can start to think of yourself in that framework, that I am an artist, I am a creative, and I am a problem solver, whatever it is you do, I think that that's really going to be beneficial to getting to that next step of either selling for the first time, or even if you want to go work for somebody and be an employee, right? You're still selling yourself. You're still a problem solver. So you want to think about that in terms of whatever your skills are and the problems that you can solve. Who do you want to go work for? If that's, the road that you're inclined to go down, who would you want to work for? So being a problem solver is a really good way to start earning money. Okay. All right. So with all that being said, I have a free giveaway for you. And it is essentially what I talked about in this episode, about this path of figuring out what your creative skills are, figuring out what problems they can solve, and then figuring out whose problems they're going to solve. And it is a PDF, and there's a link in the show notes if you would like to get this PDF. And I basically break it out just like I did here today. And there's an example that I put in there of the things that I do and how I would use this worksheet. And then I encourage you to use it this in a similar way for yourself. You may have different skills, you may have different clients, but I think the process is pretty universal. And I think this is a beneficial tool that's going to help you to laser focus what it is you want to do and who you could potentially do it for by solving their problems. And I'm excited for you. I'm excited to hear what you think about this PDF. I really would like feedback on it, if it's beneficial to you, if you don't like it, if you think there's a better way to approach it. And then if I can help you with anything after this worksheet, or even with the worksheet, if you're interested in some coaching and you want to contact me about what it would look like to be coached, you can email me at john@thebreakthroughcreative.com. That link and address will be down in the show notes as well. And as always, I'm excited for you. I'm excited for artists, any kind of artist who is going to make the leap and put the work in to make a living from their craft. It's been such an incredible journey for me. And I would expect it would be similar for you. But it has its ups and downs, right? And nothing's perfect. But man, it's a good life. It's a good life in so many ways. I love being creative. I love my clients, and I love making a living from what it is that I do. So with that, I'm John McDavitt. You already know that. This is the Breakthrough Creative. You already know that. And I hope that you get about the business of figuring out what it is that you can do creatively to earn your living. And I will see you next time. Cheers.